First of all, I'm glad to be here. I have to tell you that I love this event, largely because of what Esther said yesterday. This is a very unique setting, a very unique public space where folks can actually form a network and actually form a learning community about urban education practice and furthering our work and the challenges of urban education.
The whole system of preschool to K-12 to post-secondary education to career is largely disconnected. It's disconnected at the state level, it's disconnected at the local level, and much of what we propose in this report depends on getting those dots connected. I don't think I've ever wanted to say that we needed a Ministry of Education, which is a model that other countries embrace, but we can't go forward without better integration of our systems. And as a university president, a university chancellor, and now a system chancellor, I also believe that universities have to assume that teacher education, the education of our nation's teachers, belongs not only to schools and colleges of education, but to the entire university. And that's why, as a president and as a chancellor and as a system head, I'm still talking about teacher education. Trust me, every day I could talk about rocket science, because presidents like to talk about rocket science. But teaching is rocket science, so I want us to talk about it as an all-university responsibility. So this is context. We are going to transform the way we prepare teachers, because that's the key to closing our achievement gap. That's the key to retaining the best and brightest in our career.
Hands down, obviously the most important thing is being in front of a classroom actually teaching without another teacher there to watch you. You need to become the person in charge of the classroom without relying on a head teacher or your mentor teacher to pick up the pieces if something goes poorly. I would also say that my diversity competency sessions were above and beyond what I have received through where I work right now, in terms of how do I make my students proud of their heritage and also teach that within the classroom and make sure that they are present in their backgrounds, their friends, their families, and yet other backgrounds are also present. For me, in my teaching program, there was a very large emphasis on making sure that as a white teacher going into a class of, for me, all students from a Mexican or Latino background, that they need to see themselves reflected in the curriculum, but they also need to be exposed to other races and backgrounds, because my students don't see a wide variety of people and places and experiences. So I would say those two things were above and beyond the best things that prepared me for teaching.
First of all, policy is way ahead of the research. So I'm supposed to be focusing on providing you with the research base for all of these things like multiple measures and weighting measures and what sort of measures to use for the non-tested subjects and grades and how we can use them for ELL students and special education students. And the problem is there's almost no research on that. So we're really way out in front in terms of the policy and way behind in terms of figuring out, is this valid? Is it reliable? Is it safe to say that this teacher is effective based on this information? We just don't have good data.
You need everybody working. So when I was teaching in Detroit, I used to tell all of my students, I don't care what you do, but you need to have a tax-paying job so that I can live off of you when I retire. You got to be paying Social Security. You just do, right? Because 403Bs, 401Ks, whatever it is, that's not going to be enough, right? And so my wife likes to shop and all that, so I don't know when I'll retire, but that's a whole other conversation. But nonetheless, this whole idea of collective responsibility and raising our expectations and raising these young men up as high as we can.
But nothing was more painful than the subject of college. The teachers say, everybody can go to college. Everybody can do it, no matter what, Yadira recounted. And it's hard because I can't just raise my hand and say, well, miss, I don't have my papers. It's not clear who you can trust.
A commitment and folks are leaving after 2 or 3 years, right? And so truth be told, we had a conversation about Teach for America, so I don't know if any Teach for America folks out there, but we did. Like, what does it mean when we know that students build relationships over a period of time, but then all of a sudden folks throwing up the deuces after 2 years and say, all right, then, it's great, I'm about to go to Stanford Law. I'm just saying, like, somebody needs to raise the question. Like, what does that mean for the students, right? How do we move beyond that particular framework?
What you're doing in your individual communities and urban environments are beginning to build the models in which this kind of systemic change, I think, for the first time, has some possibilities of occurring. And so I'm very happy to be here as a part of this conference.
Then when people try to judge me by what I make, I can hold my head up high and pay no attention. You want to know what I make? I make a difference. And teachers make every other